Have you ever wondered why you might have sudden symptoms like an intense sharp pain somewhere in the body, or an eruption, something like acne or eczema, or a flare of hives or redness on your skin? Maybe you develop a sudden cough or like a tingle and you're like, why does my throat hurt? Maybe blurred vision, or out of nowhere, then things like autoimmune diseases start to develop. Or possibly it could be something like TMJ, you would faint, these kind of things that start to manifest like nerve pains. Of course, then there's the development of further issues, PCOS, endometriosis, parasitic infection or gut issues, a lot of gut issues and bloating. I'm not going to go so much into parasitic infection and these things because most people don't even know that it could be that. So let's go with the simple symptoms, where you really just don't feel like yourself. The problem is most people have normalized discomfort and pain to the point that it's not something that they even question is out of the norm or ask themselves, what's going on here? And it's just that gentle curiosity of, what's up? What's going on here, buddy? Like, hey, heart, how are you feeling today? Or putting your hands on your hips, just taking a deep breath in. We are not living in that society that also allows that space and flexibility for that sometimes until we do it enough, we repeat it enough that it becomes that neuroplasticity and rewiring into our routine, our structure, our non-negotiables. So, hi, my name's Tara. I am your host for Science and Soul as a podcast. And so far, I have guests that I interview on the show, and it's merging the seen and the unseen when it comes to what true well-being is. And well-being is absolutely everything. It is not just what we put in our body in terms of food, it's what we're consuming. It is also our belief systems and our stories, our nervous system state, and way beyond that. And that's what I love to delve into. So I interview guests from all over the world, and we usually dive into functional health, Chinese medicine, mitochondrial health, all of the things as well in today's society that are actually taking us away from alignment, out of alignment and coherence, and what really affect the body's energy. And I feel that, we've been inundated with the supplements to take and all of the things we need to add, but I very much believe it's everything we need to strip away. And I bring guests that really, that we can have these conversations. And then the soul part, that's the science, but then there's the soul part, which is really, everything that maybe we don't say out loud. And also it's really aspects of ourselves that we are not usually taught to explore, that we think might not affect our life and what we do in our life and how we feel and how we act, the decisions we make and don't make, but they truly do. And we can't have anything without soul. Life would be very bland, super vanilla. I'm not that type of girl. So this is why I like to bridge everything together and give that true holistic embodied approach. And embodiment is everything. So if you're new here, welcome. You're joining in on a solo episode, and I hope you enjoy the others that are to come because I have just launched this podcast. So please like and subscribe to help boost this. What I do want to talk about today is symptoms, and these symptoms and how I was saying that they could manifest. And we could often think, again, with the logical mind, that maybe we did something wrong, that, something triggered it, or it's hereditary, etc. But what I want to challenge is that there is something beyond what we've been taught around this. Now, the other day, I actually saw my sister just holding her chest like this, and she was sitting down and she was just with her hand right on her chest and like almost cupping her ribs. And I was like, are you okay? And she just looked at me almost like strange that I asked that question. And she said, yeah, I just feel pain and I'm always like this. I mean, it's normal. I'm like, is it now? Is it really normal? That's not normal, girl. That's not normal. Let me just tell you. When the body is giving pain, I mean, people are so used to headaches nowadays. It is not normal. It is absolutely not normal. So when the body is passing on a message, pain is the messenger. Most people want to completely bypass it, escape it, numb it, just to keep on going. Now, unless you know what it is and the root cause, and then you're able to kind of work around it and support it, fine. But if you're so conditioned to just keep going and numb it and bypass it when your body is actually giving you a signal, and I'm going to tell you why, because we miss the precursor signals before we get into the large pattern, the thing that is the detriment. We miss those subtle cues from the body and the way it's communicating with us, and it's doing that all the time, I guarantee you. That is our nervous system. Part of our nervous system, neuroception, is detection without awareness. We're doing that every 7 seconds. And that is telling our body, our system, our entire field, are you safe? Are you not safe? Are you gonna die? So it's literally doing that all the time. And it provides us with subtle cues. Posturally, so our postural alignment, the way we're holding ourselves, whether our neck is more forward, so we have that forward head tilt, forward head posture, whether we are actually in the center of gravity, whether we're feeling our feet grounded on the earth, whether our chest is feeling tight or our stomach is being braced and almost tightened, whether we're holding our breath or breathing more shallow or not at all. These are all the cues that are giving us information, whether we are feeling safe or under threat. And your nervous system dictates the behaviors that come afterwards, because our reticular activation system, it's like a filter, is there to screen the things that are just going to keep us safe. But it's also going to screen out anything unfamiliar, even if it is good for us, an opportunity, a new person that could be a potential partner. If it doesn't feel safe because we haven't taught it what safety is and rooted ourselves in our body, then we keep on recursing in the same pattern. And that's the job. So sometimes you almost need to take those lenses off and put on a new pair of glasses and start to really hold yourself in a certain level of compassion and grace. Now, symptoms manifest, they are the byproduct of misalignment. So very recently, I was going through a lot of memory and patterns that were coming up for me to clear. Pattern by patterns, there are things that we are constantly running from in terms of stories and beliefs. These are going to be things like worthiness, abandonment, things like justice or injustice, patterns of sacrifice, lack, where we feel like we have been brought up in a lot of lack and scarcity language as well. The sacrifice, which is how much of yourself are you erasing, these self-erasure patterns, super common in women, where they are shrinking and erasing parts of themselves in order to comply, to be the good girl, the fit in. Let me just mold myself to be accepted. And that eats away at your core identity. This is the sternum, this is the center, this is our solar plexus, the xiphoid process, that fleshy bit between, right under the sternum, between the ribs. When I see that tight level of tightness, and that's also then going to block the diaphragm and the ribs from moving in circumference, like 360, that's how we're supposed to actually breathe and move. There's usually a lot of tension there. I had a lot of tension there. So, I'm a person that I work out. I've always worked out regularly, consistently. And I've had to actually modify my training to support my fascial health much more, because our fascia is this scaffolding that's holding everything together, our bones, our muscles, our organs. It is a crystalline matrix, an extracellular matrix, very fluid, and it needs to be pliable. It needs to really flow so that then electricity and signals can actually fire and move through the entire body as a highway of communication. Oftentimes, when fascia is dehydrated, it's going to crystallize and it's going to harden, right? And then it's going to cause improper circulation, improper flow of lymph, and of all of the signaling and electron signaling, because our body is an electrical vessel. It is, and it requires electrons, that electricity to charge, to function at its best. And there are many things in our day-to-day life that can dehydrate that. And I talk about this in a lot of my posts on my Instagram, in other podcasts that you will hear. These things range, it's EMF exposure, electromagnetic frequency exposure. It is how often we are immersing ourselves in nature, whether we are grounding, having physical contact to the earth with our feet. The soles of our feet is K1, kidney meridian. That's, well, the water element, but it's also where we get that energy. So getting those electrons there, if we are literally walking in nature enough to reduce that cortisol. There are a few things: food, hydration. Processed foods do not carry any nutrient-dense micronutrients that bring in the light. We need light to support the light body and expand that biofield, which is, think of it like this egg of energy around you. The more dense we are, so think of that fascia being crystallized, you're more dense, right? And you feel heavy and you feel rigid and you can't move and rotate. You feel dense. And because you quite literally are. So everything else is going to feel very dense. And these are things that can affect the body. And then physical symptoms are manifesting, yes, technically, quote unquote, out of nowhere, because you did not fall, you did not have a physical injury maybe, or you may have many years ago, and that is also affecting your fascial health. But apart from that, I like to exhaust all of those options first, right? Because I don't want to be missing something. If I want to make sure that I am okay, am I hydrating? Am I having structured water with minerals or a pinch of sea salt? Am I making sure that I am eating enough protein during the day and for the recovery? Am I making sure that I'm having enough fiber and enough micronutrients? Am I walking? Am I taking full breaths throughout the day and really watching my breath and being observant? Those are very important things. They're the non-negotiables, because from there, it's very easy to distinguish when your body is going out of alignment. If you are constantly, eating processed foods, if you are not being nourished, if then you're actually confused because your cravings are all over the place, which means chemically, internally, your terrain is also all over the place, right? It's very helter-skelter. It's literally chaos where chemically the body is going to be imbalanced in certain ways. If you're having too much sodium from so many processed foods and not enough of the good salts, you're not getting enough of the good minerals, you're actually being more depleted from your essential minerals. And I say minerals are everything, guys. I even have a free guide that you can download. And honestly, they are the foundation before you're taking any other supplement. So there are non-negotiables, right, to our health, to make sure that we are avoiding certain symptoms coming up and about from nowhere. If you're sitting down for so long and sedentary, it's very important to have a lifestyle where you're creating the routine to walk, to get 20 minutes of walk. Maybe you're splitting it up in your day and you're doing 15 minutes after your meals. And that's going to be very effective. The science shows that it's extremely effective when you're adding in 15 minutes of cardio walking after a meal rather than doing it all at once. It has a great impact on your blood sugar, on your stress levels. So that is also not going to compound to then having a sciatic nerve or really just very tight hips, right? So we can pinpoint much more easily. Now, let's just presume that you are doing those things, right? And let's say that you are working on certain parts of yourself, you're facing certain things within yourself, you're observing what your triggers are. And once you're triggered, you start to notice whether you clench forward or you clench your jaw, whether you collapse forward and drop the shoulders and maybe actually collapse at the chest, so you round the shoulders forward, or maybe you hold your head down a lot. Maybe you notice that your stomach braces whenever you feel triggered, or you feel like you lose track of your breathing. Maybe you notice that you automatically start to eat and it goes into mindless eating because you're there, but you're not there, and all of a sudden you're actually like, how much of this did I eat? Did I seriously eat the whole bag? There was a dissociation from the body that happened. And when the body gets used to dissociating and leaving time and space, of course, this is why we're not used to understanding these subtle cues and like, oh, my palms are sweaty, or oh wow, I'm starting to feel flushed, like when I see someone raising their voice or hear someone raising their voice, or wow, I'm actually feeling really uncomfortable right now, and I almost want to express myself, and there's this like lump in my throat. So these are all the essential cues. But when we've been conditioned throughout childhood and growing up to dissociate, to leave the body because that was safer, whether it's staring, whether then we start to doom scroll, whether we're just actually escaping through something else and leaving the body, like through drugs or music, where it becomes problematic as an escape rather than coming back to the body and letting it be a release, which is very, very powerful and super healthy. It can go to the extreme where we are escaping. And that could also be in training as well. You know, I had that for a long time myself in bodybuilding and that history, where it just became this way for me to escape being in time, grounded and rooted in space. Okay, that's proprioception. It's where you are rooting yourself and orienting yourself in space. And in fact, in those times when I used to train, I couldn't really feel my legs. I had really bad circulation. I had a condition called levita reticularis. So if you saw my legs, they were very webbed with blood vessels that looked like almost burst. And again, this is a symptom that's manifesting from a pattern. And that's what I want to dive into. Now, there are so many of my symptoms and my old labeling of autoimmune diseases when I was diagnosed in 2017 with 3 different autoimmune diseases, you know, and insane amount of symptoms. I don't have any of that. You know, I had terrible acne all over my face. I was extremely cystic, all down my neck. And again, you know, I managed to heal that. I don't have any foundation on at all. I'm thanking Very Demure Paris for their beautiful organic products. Just saying, we have an episode of that, which I absolutely love the way my skin feels with them. But that's all I use. For me, less is more. I truly believe that we need to peel off the layers. So when it comes to symptoms, I myself was working on a pattern recently. And, you know, I do a lot of the deep work. There's ways I can access information. I always could, and it's just come more online as time has passed, and I've accepted the level of information that I can access and the way I can not just grow within myself, but also see things then in clients and hold them at a different level and merge the science with the quantum, with the unseen. So this pattern that I was dealing with was coming with a lot of gnarly dreams, a lot of memory recall. And I think what we were never taught, and I believe is so essential to know, is how our consciousness will continue to recurse. And there are patterns that will recurse over time in different forms until there are things that we observe that can then change the trajectory. So until something is observed, then it's able to change its pattern architecture. And this is why we break the generational cycles, right? What I truly believe is, okay, how do I break a pattern, quote unquote break? Because I feel break feels so forceful. And I don't believe that you can do anything with force. It's the same with fascia and how fascia works. It's so gentle. And my body has shown me that it works with such gentle touch and gentle approach. And then there's movement and there's memory and there's release. Anything with force almost acts as this like recoil effect or rubber band effect where it just comes back and it just comes back tighter. And there's almost this rigidity and contraction that happens at a greater scale. What I was experiencing, I was going through a lot of memory in relation to abuse and sacrifice patterns that I have observed within myself. So I was I was asking, okay, why are there certain things in my life that continue to loop? Like, why are these things just continuously looping? Like, what am I doing wrong? And I kept asking that question, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how can it be that I am doing all of these rituals and things and practices and everything so structured? How can it be that there are still things that are not working or repeating themselves and they don't feel coherent? I understand that this is a frustration for many. And I can also understand why I constantly question certain spiritual communities that, it's almost like they become a slave to their own healing. And I never resonated with that. But because of my intensity around wanting to do the right thing, came the rigidity and the lack of allowing my own sovereign intelligence to emerge. So there was no space. I was like, okay, I need to do this practice in the morning and this one and this one and this one. and then after that, I'm going to do that at night and later. And this is going to be how I'm going to prepare for sessions and constantly learning, studying, taking the courses. Again, where was I allowing my own innate intelligence to emerge? Just like the word education, educo, to draw out from within. So I was actually not allowing myself to do that because the fear of getting it wrong was greater. And my dearest friend, Talia, told me something beautiful where she said, Tara, you don't have to create symptoms in order to remember who you are. And I was like, oof, wow, that landed. And again, this is where we go so deep into the work of understanding that our consciousness will create certain things that will try to allow the pattern to continue to fulfill itself, because the pattern is going to do whatever it can to continue to recurse and fulfill itself until you override it enough with safety, compassion, and grace, and softness and space that it no longer feels like it needs to, right? And this is like the same with neuroplasticity. Like, you need repetition and an emotional charge and repetition to provide the outcome and the result over time. But it's the same with the pattern work. Now, so my friend Talia is amazing at pattern work too. And I highly, highly, highly recommend her level of work because it is at a caliber of its own. And she has a beautiful podcast called Super Freak, amazing on Substack as well. I highly recommend her work. Now, when it came to seeing what was coming up for me, I was noticing that suddenly I was experiencing this really sharp pain in the center of my chest, like in my sternum. It was bone. I knew, okay, this isn't fascia right now. This isn't related. I was like, this is so deep. And it felt like honestly felt like there was almost like an arrow from a bow and arrow or a sword in there. And I was experiencing something related to previous wounding about self-erasure, my self-worth, also with a romantic connection as well. And I was working through so much of those patterns of like, no, that's not what I'm going to entertain. And I'm worthy of so much more. And I know exactly what I'm calling into my experience. And we go through so many of these things where we have to be like, yep, nope, checking this off. Nope, the don't settle, right? Don't settle. I'm not going to settle for this. But then after that, there's always something that comes in that's either really close to what you're calling in, or it's almost like this, are you sure you want to do that? Like, are you sure? And you need to be like confirming, like literally like when you're about to delete a file, it's like, are you sure you want to delete? And you have to be like, yes, motherfucker. Yes. So it's the same with the pattern stuff, but things come in right after you would have said the no. Something's going to come in so close, and almost every time it's this confirm, delete, thank you, next. It's usually never the thing. It's usually the confirm, delete, and the double checking, the let's see what she gonna do. And with that, this is where the body can show certain symptoms, because when we're clearing especially some deeply embedded wounding that has been passed on, whether it's abandonment wounds, self-erasure, extremely common in women, where we're reducing, like, oh no, like it's okay, I will make myself seem easy as a person, like just I'm easy to get along with. And those are all self-erasure. Let me just stay quiet for this one. It's okay, it's fine. All self-erasure. And that just eats away. Now, with these kind of patterns, the body still is going to purge, and the purging happens in multiple ways. I was working through a lot of memory that was coming up and also coming up from different lifetimes. And I was like, holy shit. When you see a pattern or you're feeling it and experiencing it, whether it's a trigger in your surroundings, in your day-to-day life, from a person, from a circumstance or a situation, the best thing to do is literally ask, where is this pattern coming from? Take me to the origin of this pattern and show me where it started. Because there's usually always a reason. There's always these keys and codes. I like to call them the breadcrumbs that the universe leaves. There's always breadcrumbs. Pick them up and take them as your golden nuggets and follow the clues. There's so many clues, guys, I promise. If you pay attention, trade that spiritual currency, paying attention. And those clues, you're in a video game, and every time you're leveling up. And so I was moving through a lot of child sacrifice patterns and very deep embedded, that I was having intense dreams. I woke up. There was a point, it was such a bad dream. I was breaking out in sweats. I woke up and I had to actually go feel sick with the nausea of what that dream entailed. Another dream. I was having repetitive dreams, even related to my womb. And there were so many things that then I connected the dots. I understood why I had PCOS, so many years ago. I understood why there was almost this deeply ingrained fear around certain things. I understood why my body started to develop acne and cystic acne when there was so much rage. And usually in abuse patterns, there is so much suppressed rage, suppressed injustice, and the liver holds so much of that. And the liver holds a lot of viral load. It's responsible for our digestion, bringing bile out. So bile, it's antibacterial. Bile is also helping us move out toxins from the body. The liver is responsible for many roles. I'm not going to go so much into that, but there's also the hepatic flow of the liver. There's going to be a lot of those hepatic viruses that could be dormant there, and the congestion around the liver. So this is where a lot of hormonal imbalances can come, or MCAS, the mast cell activation syndrome, things like histamine intolerance. Like I had very high levels of histamine along my journey, hence the acne and the reactivity to so many foods and to dust and to this, because there was so much threat, so much survival pattern and protection pattern and bracing. Of course, we have to clear the body internally. This is why I do the work I do from a detoxification and cellular mitochondrial support. It goes hand in hand with the somatic and nervous system work that I do. They are not separate, because when we're working with pattern, we're working with our physiology as well on a chemical level, a biochemical level. Everything affects everything. And just to circle back to what I was experiencing with the symptoms with this chest pain, it started to get worse and worse. Now I was observing it. I was like, okay, let me be gentle. Let me do some fascial work. Let me focus on my breathing. I'm going to work on the ribs. I tapped in and I tuned in into meditation, and I saw that there was a steel, almost like a steel plate with a hook. And I was like, okay, what's this? Now, a couple of weeks prior to that, I did a removal from a younger part of me, and going into almost like regression therapy, where I did a removal from myself, some Draco that was stuck there, and I had to just take it out and fill up with more light. The Tara 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, beyond would have never even believed that this would exist, that this is real. I would be like, yeah, okay, cool. And I have been humbled, I tell you. So I did that, and I could see what I needed to work on. In this, with my chest pain, it's almost like there was something, like it was so deep and embedded, I couldn't see it at first. I streamline a lot of information through symbols. So symbols are my language that I bring in and that I can actually then translate or feel, sometimes not just through words to connect dots, but I also feel. I get the feeling of the harmonics, because mathematics is also harmonics and geometrical shapes. I would get that information and I would be like, okay, I know what this is. And then I connect the dots, and I do that with my clients. I do that for myself and the quantum work. And I was doing a lot of this clearing. Suddenly, like, I was talking to my friend Talia, and she was also like giving me the feedback loop too. She was the perfect mirror that I needed in this time to ask me this for certain questions that I could then go within and see what's going on. And eventually I had to do this removal because I kept seeing this gaping hole, and almost like it was set on fire literally within my chest. And there was so much there that was pain, again accompanied with a lot of memories related to abuse. And this is going back lifetimes. And the interesting thing is, you may ask me, okay, Tarab, so how is that relevant to this life? Now, in this life, I came into this experience younger than the age of 12. So as little as I can remember, up until the age of 12, I was already having deep fear around rape and thoughts of that and abuse and a lot of things. And there was a lot of shame and fear around me thinking that as a child. So I experienced not just that, I mean, my mother also experienced that herself. So this is going generationally. But we take on implicit memory. There are things that are stored implicitly, or again, there is a pattern that continues to recurse until it is observed. This is what it means to break the generational cycle. It is meant to then be observed and the trajectory to be changed. And the day after I did this particular removal, I mean, on that day in itself, my chest pain was gone. It was gone. So I worked on it once myself. It was gone, and then it came back with a vengeance. So bad that I remember I was laying in bed and it was so painful that I actually screamed, literally. Now, a regular person would actually say, I think I need to go to the hospital, or something's wrong with me, or oh my God, I'm having a heart attack or something. And they would go to a doctor, and the doctor is most likely going to give them something to ease the symptom. But I guarantee you, it has nothing to do with the symptom in and of itself. It really doesn't. Like John Barnes says, find the pain, look elsewhere for the cause. So that came back with a vengeance. And there was a part of myself that I observed that said, fuck, should I go to the hospital, man? And I was like, no. And again, I instilled those words. Tara, you do not need to create a symptom to remember who the fuck you are. We're not doing that anymore. Come in another way, give me some other information. I'm not doing this. I'm stronger than this. We're not doing symptoms. I am not needing to feel valuable by needing to fix something anymore. And this is where our consciousness can try to fulfill that pattern. If the pattern comes from the story that you are only valuable if you are useful. Maybe you were given the silent treatment all the time at home, but when you were useful and you did stuff, then you were praised or you were given attention and love. So the consciousness and the ego is going to do whatever it can to fulfill that pattern. Therefore, it can then create other scenarios in life that if it's useful, it is going to feel valuable. My consciousness created something to fix and to feel in control with and to have the solution, especially also because in my life, everyone around me was sick or unwell or died of cancer or died from suicide, and I couldn't do anything, and I saw helplessness, and I've probably felt that. It's just very interesting and how intelligent our consciousness is, and the intelligence that our body and our field holds. So it's not just the physical body, it's the emotional body, the mental body, right? The spirit body, and it's just extending beyond. So we have those 15 layers, and that's your whole bioenergetic field. Now, the second time with that chest pain, I asked my friend Talia, who I'm very careful and discerning who I trust with work, and she's someone that I trust blindly. And I was like, okay, Talia, please, I need your help. And she was like, okay, let's go. And this is where she worked on me, and only with gentle touch as well, because I felt everything. And with the gentle touch is where then I could start to see within myself and see what was going on. And I was like, I get it. Cleared that, and it was gone. Instantly gone. And from there, with it being instantly gone, the next day, the Epstein files came out. And the first thing that I saw was the Epstein files in relation to Malta, where I'm from. And I have, for the past 2 years, been doing a lot of work on the islands and understanding the history and the slavery patterns and what's been conducted, the history, clearing that history. I mean, even last year, I was doing some deep work in Rabat, literally war central of history. And I was doing so much clearing and seeing what was coming up. And that came through the body also. I remember going to the bathroom and having blood for 3 days and feeling the kidneys and really experiencing the body. And I was like, oof, there's so much moving through. There's a part of you that would go, oh my God, shit, should I go to a doctor? What do I have? And I just instantly, I was like, nope, I know what's going on. I know what I'm clearing. I'll bring all the tools that I need. I supported myself, with my Chinese medicine tools and the right foods and the right herbs, and just held myself. It's the embodiment and those micro choices, the nourishment and the connection that you have, otherworldly as well as your body. Those combined, that's what you need. And it was fine. I worked through that. It was fine. So fast forward now, to the Epstein and that reaction and the way my body felt when I saw that. So I was doing the work in the field. There was already all this information that was happening in the field, and it's only a matter of time that it shows up in other areas in physical form. It's this constant mirroring. So immediately I was like, of course, this came out today. Wow. And I felt that somatically in my body. And I knew that there was so much memory there. So even when it comes to my clients, when I'm working with my clients and I can sense or feel certain things in the field, I wait, because there are often times as well that either I'm clearing it and I'm working through that for them so that, they're not going to need to struggle. And then there are some things that they almost like need to occur. So sometimes there are things I cannot say and they need to occur. And then they would text me 2-3 days later, 4 weeks later, this, and this happened. And I was like, I would know. It's the field, man. It's a feedback loop. So with the symptoms in and of themselves, the symptoms continue to show up. They manifest in a certain way because they take physical form from the pattern. They literally are taking physical form from the pattern itself. So why does the pattern continue to recur, and how can we break the pattern? Now, again, this breaking is not by force. It's not by force. And if they are relational wounding, so related to abuse, related to trauma that happened where it's in relation to another, then we most likely need co-regulation. In this case, because I was so used to self-regulating, to holding myself, to nourishing my body, that in this case, I didn't need more of that. My body is not going to respond to that because it's so used to that as a safety mechanism. So the moment I'm actually doing more of that, it's deeming that there's a threat. So I actually had to let go of all the rigidity and all of the structure and all of the things and just really be present in what is needed in the moment. And sometimes this is honestly why we need facilitators that we trust and other people because we need co-regulation. We need another nervous system and a relation with another in this coherent sphere and fields that we are creating together. That is just the way it works. That is human connection at its finest, and that is what we are as humans, and we are in need of. So the pattern, it starts, yes, with observing, with the recognition of it. Like, I'm noticing that this continues to happen. So ask yourself, okay, what's a pattern that it seems to be like a constant loop in my life right now? And try not to pick something that is almost puts you in a state of anxiety or intensity. You can start with something a bit more subtle or basic. Maybe it's a pattern where you notice that you eat when you're stressed, or a pattern where you notice that you aren't saying no when you want to say no. Because again, that's a self-erasure, right? It's falling under self-erasure. Why are you abandoning yourself? And observe that, and then ask, okay, show me the root of this pattern. Take me to the origin of this pattern and see what comes up. You may not get the answer in that moment. I guarantee you, it's probably going to come in little glimpses throughout the day. It may come in a meditation. It may come in your dreams in a message. It may come through being with a friend where you're just in nature. Just allow it. And again, no forcing. There's no forcing. And once we get to that part, then we're going to go into the body and into the subtle cues. It's about making space, because of course we want to choose the contrary action, right? Like, breaking the pattern means that we're going to choose the contrary action. Your ex texts you, you're going to be like, the old me would have replied, I am not going to reply to this. Block, bye. Yes, you've chosen the contrary action, but there could still be some lingering debris there from the old pattern or belief that's going to come question you. You sure about that? And so you might have another person come into your life that is also showing you the same traits. Or you might have another situation where you're going to be checked, like, are you going to abandon yourself here? It's a feedback loop to double check with you. What, apart from choosing the contrary action, most of us don't realize, because we're already so deep in the pattern that we're like, fuck, how am I here again? We're like, shit, I'm here. Because we've got so used to being out of the body. And society nowadays does not help. It does not help, because everyone is in so much sympathetic drive and go, 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 and need to do this, and everything's on the clock, that there is not enough time to land in time and space. This is why you see so many people with forward head posture, like forward head tilt, where we're losing our center of gravity. You know, your brainstem, the base of the skull, and then your C1 to C7, that's an interface. It's not just keeping your head stable, it's also supporting your entire body to rotate, correct? Like, that's helping the nervous system gather information. We're having full peripheral vision, but then also it's the interface between the other worlds and between the ground here, our earth. It's that interface where information comes through, and we are almost like a sieve, you know? And then we have the vestibular system, which goes through the ears, and that is what helps to bring that sensory information in. It affects our vision, it affects our sense of time and space and orientation, which is quite powerful. And the psyop that we live in and all of this distortion is created for us to literally lose our sensing in time and space, our orientation in time and space. So the easiest thing, the way to start, is by making space in your space with orientation. What does that look like? It can look like a hand on your chest, a deep breath. It can look like you looking around the room and just observing the colors and the textures that you see. It can look like your hand on your head or at the base of your neck. It can even look like you giving yourself a hug. All of this, maybe feeling your feet grounded on the floor, tuning into the senses. So feeling the breeze on your skin or the sun on your face and your chest. All these subtle cues that then you can observe. What is my body doing in this moment right now? Are my hands relaxed? Is the tongue relaxed or on the roof of my mouth? How is my jaw? Maybe you can move it side to side. Also, do I feel a tightness in my chest? Am I holding my breath right now? Or am I bracing? Observing. These are the little cues that they're the precursor to when the actual pattern is like coming in hard or when you're falling right deep into it. So it's those observations. And with those observations, we're creating more space that then allows us to choose the contrary action. Most people they don't want to sit in the void long enough. This is where everyone bails and everyone runs and gives up. Sometimes there's the discomfort that comes first, right? The moments we're being held or we're holding ourselves is when we collapse into the pain or the grief or the emptiness we're feeling until we don't, right? This is what children do when they're having their tantrum or they're really crying and then all of a sudden they're running around and doing their thing. It's allowing the nervous system to complete that procedural memory and giving it that space. It's not about pushing and forcing. So to break, quote unquote, the pattern is actually by allowing space and coming to the body and then choosing the contrary action with that love and with that safety and meeting yourself. And from there, that's where then the contrary action is going to be much more supported. It's the embodiment piece. And this is where I think a lot of people kind of miss the puzzle. Like I see like a lot of people being very technical in the quantum work, and even some of my other teachers, there was a lot of mind, not a lot of body and heart coherence and really like coming into the body. And that's where then we allow things to emerge. And then on the other side of the somatic practices, I feel that there's so much push for cathartic releases that the cathartic releases are actually what is keeping the pattern recursing and keeping one addicted to that sensation. So this is where the addiction to healing actually continues and the loops continue. So there's a fine line in the middle. I have a nervous system workshop that you can actually take a look at. It's a workshop just to really support you in building resilience and widening that window of tolerance and building that capacity to be able to hold yourself, your feelings, your experiences, creating more bandwidth, because with more bandwidth, you can see more, you can hold more, and therefore then you're able to navigate more things in life. This is why certain systems don't want us to have that capacity. And I also have another resource that I'm going to link for you, which is the multisensory sound. So I use my voice and I use certain sensory experiences to get the body to get you in the body, to get you really going through this orientation experience. I have some free tools and I also have some paid ones that you can dive into, how to get out of fight mode, flight mode, freeze, etc. So you'll be able to find out, I'll link it. So going back to the symptoms, guys, when the body creates physical manifestations, it is trying to take form. The pattern is going to try come in another way, whether through creating a belief or a voice in your head, say, go do that, go do this. I just want to emphasize that we know that the emotion accommodates the feeling. So the emotion comes prior to the feeling. There's an emotional charge, then the feeling happens afterwards. But the nervous system is the architecture and how we operate and the default, and we usually entrain to our parents' nervous system, either one of them. Most of the time it's more one than the other. And that is the default survival coping strategy for safety. And it's going to go there by default until we retrain the limbic system. So your nervous system will dictate the choices you make and don't make, what you say, what you don't say. what you do, what you don't do. But what is running that, right? So if you're approaching a trigger, the nervous system is going to respond. And then even the way your body holds itself architecturally is going to respond in that memory. And then everything that you do from there. So the behaviors come from your nervous system state. But this is why it's incomplete. Like most people don't realize that, yes, nervous system work is important, but it's incomplete. You have to go to what is accommodating that to begin with. And that is the pattern. There is a pattern that is accommodating all of that. When we get to the root, then your consciousness will choose literally a different outcome, a different type of structure, of waveform, better say waveform, completely. This is why until that pattern is observed and worked on, then it will not truly be able to be like, again, broken, cleared, overwritten, call it what you want. But observe what patterns you are notice that you're like, fuck man, why does this keep, it's the same thing. Like there's always related to this, or it's always related to that. Because there is a reason, and you can start approaching your symptoms in another way. Like I had one client who had severe psoriasis, absolutely severe. And she was like, I don't understand. Why did this happen? Psoriasis as a skin condition is usually coming from when a child is separated from both parents. Eczema is usually from one. And now again, sometimes it's not physical proximity or like given away from the parents or taken away from them. It's emotionally. And so then consciousness is creating this physical symptom. There are other reasons, yes. So from a functional medical standpoint, this is why I love to look at everything, every bit of data. But never miss it out. Like I had asked this client, I remember in the consultation, I asked her in the assessment, I asked her, may I ask you a question? Did you always live with your parents when you were younger? And that's where then she told me I was actually an orphan. I was given into an orphanage. And for me, that was a crucial piece of the data that is essential for understanding why her consciousness felt like it needed to create that as a survival mechanism. It got extremely triggered after she lost one of her best friends to cancer. So again, there's a trigger there with loss, and that triggered the survival mechanism even more. So we have to get to the root. I supported her from an immunology standpoint with one of my immunologist doctors that I work alongside, supported her with my own protocol, worked on her somatically. It's a holistic approach. And then that's how we truly can heal, come into coherence, really move from sovereignty and alignment. So my invitation to you is to approach everything with curiosity, with compassion, with grace. And before you move into panic and fear, say, I know I don't give this power. Show me what this is. Take me to origin. And you can reach out to people like myself or other people that you find as practitioners to support you along your journey, especially when co-regulation is needed. And I truly believe that most of us need that. So if there are any ways that I can support you, feel free to go to Embodied with Tara on my Instagram, and you can get access to all of the ways to work with me from there. I hope that this video was helpful enough for you, and I can't wait to see you on the next episodes of Science and Soul. Until next time, guys.